The new company owner Bradley Whitman stood in front of our crew with his expensive suit and fresh MBA, announcing that construction workers were easily replaceable, and that he was cutting our wages by 20% because we were overpaid for manual labor that anyone can do. I watched my crew of skilled tradesmen, electricians, plumbers, and carpenters with decades of experience each, exchange glances as Bradley explained his efficiency improvements and how he planned to hire cheaper, inexperienced workers to replace anyone who didn't accept the new terms. What Bradley didn't realize was that our crew had built every major project this company had completed for the past 8 years, and that his replaceable workers were about to show him exactly how irreplaceable skilled labor becomes when you're facing million-dollar deadlines with a crew of inexperienced day laborers. My name is Rico Vasquez. I'm 39 years old, and 3 months ago I watched a trust fund MBA try to turn our successful construction company into his personal profit machine by treating skilled tradesmen like disposable workers. What Bradley Whitman didn't understand was that construction isn't just about moving materials around, it's about years of expertise, safety knowledge, and problem-solving skills that can't be replaced with cheap labor. And his arrogance was about to cost him everything. I'd been working for Morrison Construction for 12 years, starting as a general laborer and working my way up to crew foreman. The company was founded by Frank Morrison, a third-generation contractor who understood construction from the ground up and treated his workers with respect and fair compensation. Our crew was solid, 8 experienced tradesmen who had worked together for years. We had electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and heavy equipment operators who could handle any project from residential homes to commercial buildings. We were known throughout Denver for quality work, on-time completion, and safety records that insurance companies love. Frank had always operated on the principle that skilled workers were the company's most valuable asset. He paid above market wages, provided excellent benefits, and maintained a profit-sharing program that gave crews incentives to complete projects efficiently and safely. "You guys are the ones who build our reputation," Frank would tell us during quarterly meetings. "Take care of the work, and I'll take care of you." That philosophy had made Morrison Construction one of the most respected contractors in Colorado, with a waiting list of clients who specifically requested our crews for their projects. But Frank was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 18 months ago, and his declining health forced him to consider selling the company he'd spent 30 years building. Bradley Whitman was the son of one of Frank's longtime clients, a real estate developer who had hired Morrison Construction for multiple projects over the years. Bradley had recently completed his MBA and was looking for investment opportunities in the construction sector. Frank introduced Bradley to our operations during his final months, hoping to find a buyer who would maintain the company culture and employee relationships he'd worked so hard to establish. "Bradley seems like a smart guy," Frank told me during one of our last conversations. "He's got business education and family connections in real estate. I think he could grow the company in ways I never could." Frank passed away 4 months ago, and Bradley officially took ownership of Morrison Construction 6 weeks later. The changes began immediately. Bradley's first company meeting was held in the office conference room, with all crew foremen and senior tradesmen required to attend. He stood at the front of the room in an expensive suit, looking like he was about to address a board of directors rather than construction work. "Gentlemen, I want to discuss my vision for the future of this company," Bradley began, consulting notes on his tablet. "Morrison Construction has been successful, but there are significant opportunities for improvement in our operational efficiency and profit margin." He clicked to his first PowerPoint slide. "Cost structure analysis. My analysis shows that our labor costs are approximately 23% higher than industry standards for comparable work. This represents a substantial competitive disadvantage that we need to address immediately." I raised my hand. "Bradley, our higher wages reflect the skill level and experience of our crews. We complete projects faster and with fewer callbacks than most contractors, which saves money overall." "Rico, I understand your perspective, but the numbers don't support that argument. Higher labor costs directly impact our ability to bid competitively on new projects." He clicked to his next slide. "Wage restructuring initiative. Effective immediately, All hourly wages will be reduced by 20% to bring us in line with industry standard. Additionally, the profit-sharing program will be suspended while we focus on improving our cost structure. The room erupted with questions and protests from the crew. "Bradley, these guys have families and mortgages," said Mike Thompson, our senior electrician. "A 20% pay cut isn't a minor adjustment, it's a significant financial hardship." "Mike, I understand that change is difficult, but businesses need to adapt to market conditions. Construction workers are easily replaceable, and our wages need to reflect market reality." Tony Rodriguez, our head plumber, stood up. "Easily replaceable? Do you have any idea how long it takes to develop the skills we use every day?" Bradley's response was condescending and dismissive. "Tony, I'm sure you're skilled at what you do, but construction work is fundamentally manual labor. With proper training and supervision, we can achieve the same results with less experienced workers at lower wages." "What about safety records?" I asked. "Our crew has one of the best safety records in the state. Inexperienced workers mean more accidents, higher insurance costs, and potential liability issues. Safety is important, but it's also a matter of proper supervision and following protocol. Experience isn't the only factor in workplace safety." Bradley clearly had no understanding of how construction actually worked. He saw workers as interchangeable labor units rather than skilled professionals, whose expertise prevented costly mistakes and dangerous accidents. The meeting ended with Bradley giving everyone 2 weeks to decide whether to accept the new wage structure or find employment elsewhere. "I'm confident that most of you will recognize the value of stable employment and adapt to these necessary changes," he concluded. That evening, our crew met at Murphy's Tavern to discuss Bradley's ultimatum. The consensus was unanimous. We weren't going to accept a 20% pay cut from someone who clearly didn't understand or respect what we did. "This guy thinks we're just muscle with tools," Mike said over his beer. "He has no idea how much knowledge goes into doing this work safely and efficiently." "What are our options?" asked Tony. "Most of us have been with Morrison for years. Starting over somewhere else means losing seniority and benefits." "I'd been thinking about this since Bradley's announcement. What if we didn't start over somewhere else? What if we started our own company?" The idea had been percolating in my mind for months. As Bradley's attitude toward workers became clear, our crew had the skills, experience, and client relationships to operate independently. "Rico, starting a construction company requires licenses, insurance, bonding, and significant capital," Mike pointed out. "Mike, I've been researching this since Frank got sick. Between all of us, we have every trade license needed for residential and commercial work. The insurance and bonding requirements are manageable if we pool our resources." Over the next week, we held daily meetings to discuss the logistics of starting our own company. Each crew member would contribute both startup capital and sweat equity, giving everyone ownership stake in the business. Tony had connections with equipment rental companies. Mike knew electrical supply vendors who would extend credit to licensed contractors. Our heavy equipment operator, Carlos, had relationships with material suppliers who had worked with Morrison for years. Most importantly, we had Frank Morrison's client list and a reputation for quality work that had taken years to build. 2 weeks after Bradley's ultimatum, all 8 members of our crew submitted their resignations simultaneously. Bradley was shocked and clearly hadn't expected mass departures. "Gentlemen, I think you're making a serious mistake," he told us during an emergency meeting. "Construction jobs aren't easy to find, and you're walking away from stable employment over a temporary wage adjustment." "Bradley, this isn't about temporary adjustments," I explained. "This is about being treated with respect and paid fairly for skilled work." "Rico, you're overestimating your value in the marketplace. I can replace all of you within a month, with workers who will be grateful for steady employment." "Good luck with that," Mike said as we walked out. Bradley immediately began advertising for replacement workers, offering wages 30% below what he'd been paying us. The applications came from day laborers, recent trade school graduates, and workers with minimal construction experience. Meanwhile, we were filing incorporation paperwork for Vasquez Construction LLC, with each crew member holding equal partnership stakes. We used our combined savings to secure initial licensing,
insurance, and equipment rental. The first test of Bradley's easily replaceable theory came 3 weeks after our departure. Morrison Construction was scheduled to begin a major office building renovation that we had originally been assigned to complete. I received a call from the project manager, Sarah Chen, who had worked with our crew on multiple previous projects. "Rico, what's going on with Morrison? They showed up this morning with a completely new crew that doesn't seem to know what they're doing." "Sarah, we left Morrison to start our own company. Bradley decided that experienced workers were too expensive and replaced us with inexperienced labor. That explains a lot. The new crew spent 2 hours trying to figure out how to safely shut off electrical power to the renovation area. One of them nearly got electrocuted because he didn't understand the building's wiring system." "Sarah, if you're not satisfied with Morrison's performance, Vasquez Construction would be happy to discuss taking over the project." Within a week, Sarah had terminated Morrison's contract due to safety violations and awarded the project to our new company. Bradley's replaceable workers had proven dangerous and incompetent, creating liability issues that the client couldn't accept. Over the next month, we acquired 3 more projects that Bradley's inexperienced crews had mishandled. Word spread quickly through Denver's construction community that Morrison Construction's quality and safety standards had collapsed. Bradley called me personally after losing the 4th major project. "Rico, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'd like to discuss bringing your team back to Morrison with improved compensation and benefits." "Bradley, we're not employees anymore. We're competitors. Look, I understand you're upset about the wage restructuring, but I'm prepared to offer significant incentives for you to return." "Bradley, it's not about the money anymore. It's about working with someone who understands and respects skilled labor." "Rico, please. The company is struggling without experienced crews. I need help getting these projects back on track." "Bradley, you said we were easily replaceable. You should be fine with your new worker." The conversation ended with Bradley offering to pay our company as subcontractors to complete projects his crews couldn't handle, essentially acknowledging that his replaceable workers couldn't actually replace us. 6 months after leaving Morrison, Vasquez Construction had 12 employees and was grossing over $200,000 monthly. We'd acquired most of Morrison's former clients and several new contracts based on our reputation for quality work and safety. Bradley's experiment with cheap labor had destroyed Morrison Construction's reputation and financial stability. His inexperienced crews had caused safety violations, project delays, and quality issues that resulted in expensive callbacks and legal liability. Morrison Construction filed for bankruptcy 8 months after our departure. Bradley had proven that skilled construction workers weren't as easily replaceable as his MBA education had suggested. At the bankruptcy auction, Vasquez Construction purchased Morrison's remaining equipment and took over their final contracts, completing them with the same crews Bradley had dismissed as overpaid manual labor. Bradley's attempt to treat skilled tradesmen as disposable workers had backfired completely. His disrespect for experienced labor had created the competition that ultimately destroyed his business. The best revenge against Bradley wasn't elaborate schemes or personal retaliation. It was simply proving that skilled construction work requires expertise, experience, and judgment that can't be bought cheaply or replaced easily. Bradley learned that construction isn't just manual labor. It's problem-solving, safety management, and technical expertise that takes years to develop and can't be replaced with day laborers and fresh trade school graduates. Our crew learned that they didn't need to accept disrespect from employers who didn't understand their value. By starting our own company, we proved that skilled workers have options when treated poorly by management that views them as expendable. 2 years later, Vasquez Construction employs 30 people and has become one of Denver's most respected contractors. We maintain the profit-sharing program and above-market wages that Frank Morrison established, proving that treating workers well is good business practice. Bradley moved back to his father's real estate business, where his MBA credentials were more valuable than his failed attempt at construction management. Sometimes the best response to being called easily replaceable is to start your own company and let the market determine who's actually replaceable. Justice served with successful business competition and the undeniable value of skilled labor.